Welcome to Inclusive Voices Media. This is Glendale City Council Candidate Series. Local elections matter because the decisions made at the City Council level directly impact everyday quality of life, from public safety and housing to business development to traffic to parks and, of course, community services. That's why it is so important to stay informed, to get involved, and most importantly, cast your vote. In the interest of keeping our audience informed, we wanted to bring you this very special candidate interview series featuring the people who want to serve on the City Council, on the Glendale City Council. And in the interest of fairness, of course, and equal treatment for all of the candidates, we followed the same protocol for every single interview. All candidates were invited and given the opportunity to select a time slot on the same interview day. Each interview was limited to 10 minutes. All interviews were conducted live to tape. That means we recorded the interviews continuously without stopping, without editing, without retakes, without do-overs. Additionally, every candidate was asked the exact same questions with some follow-ups, and no candidate received questions in advance. Our goal here at Inclusive Voices Media is to provide voters with a fair, transparent, and consistent platform so you can hear directly from the candidates and make an informed decision at the ballot box. Interviews are published one at a time and in alphabetical order. Thank you for watching. Please remember to vote. Hello, everybody. I'm Silva Harapetian. Welcome to our candidate series, where we're talking to the people who are running for Glendale City Council. And today with me is Elen Asatryan, council member herself, running for office again for another term. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
We only have 10 minutes, so I'm going to get into the questions.
Sure.
Is that all right? All right. So Glendale is under incredible pressure from the state of California to build more housing while residents are concerned about traffic, neighborhood character, and infrastructure impact. How would you balance the need for additional housing while preserving the quality of life in Glendale?
Sure. I'll say that I share the same concerns as our residents, and you have seen that time and again when these items have come up on the dais. Every Tuesday we have a meeting. I will say that there's opportunities for us to look at our land use element and how we're building out. We can't stop the mandates. We can group with other cities to be able to advocate for amendments to some of these very heavy-handed mandates that are coming down from Sacramento in hopes of changing some of the structures around that. But ultimately, it's where we place this housing. We are now required to build 13,000 new units, which is absolutely bonkers to me. We are the lead city in the number of affordable housing units that we've been able to build in the last some years, which I'm very, very proud of. But it's really important for us to look at the land that we have in the city of Glendale. One of the things that I championed during my tenure was looking at the San Fernando corridor, which is now, right by the train station. And so looking at opportunities where housing can be built in spaces where the infrastructure supports it. But I will add that regardless of where we put that housing, I have grave concerns about how we fund the rest of the things that come with added housing. That includes our public safety, that includes our infrastructure, that includes our power grid. And I've time and again, whether I've been in Sacramento advocating for Glendale or during council meetings, I speak to this a lot because when you, as an example, on Central are now building 680 units, which are going to bring in thousands of new people into our city, how am I covering the costs for our police officers, adding dispatch, paving the roads, and how that balances out with even traffic congestion. The mandate that came through as an example for that central project, we as a council voted against it knowing that we couldn't. We were basically a rubber stamp for Sacramento. I actually during that meeting noted, why is it in front of me if I can't vote no? And it's not that I don't want the housing, but if we can't dictate what that project looks like at the heart of our city, even talk about wanting to have some green spaces for that unit or a grocery store downstairs. So those individuals living in that unit, those units are able to come down and, grab their cup of coffee or grab their groceries without taking the car. I think we've seen a series of these come from Sacramento, but I will also say that how we look at changing our land use element is going to be the biggest impact we can have in this space. So not to cram everything in downtown, to preserve our single family neighborhoods, but also look at opportunities where there's land that supports the infrastructure that supports these projects.
Okay, I'm going to continue. If we have time, we're going to come back to these questions.
Sure.
Glendale is facing significant budget pressures and must make very difficult and serious decisions involving reserves and hiring freezes and deferred capital projects.
Yes.
What are your top spending priorities? And as a follow-up, where would you reduce costs if revenues continue to decline further?
Sure. So I'll say that I was the only council member that voted against the budget last year. Because I think cuts and adding taxes are the lazy way of budgeting. I will also say that in the last 3.5 years, I have brought forth at least 10 to 12 revenue generating items that have been sitting there that haven't come for a vote. The most recent one that finally came was, for example, doing a public-private partnership for EV chargers. I had the opportunity to meet with the president of the California Bears that was interested in building and investing in our city an ice skating rink, an ice hockey rink. When you look at the one in Pasadena, the one sheet generates $1.5 million clean for the city. They were looking at doing 2 sheets. It's been sitting there for 2 years without it being brought to a vote or staff actually moving the ball forward. And so I think for me, I spoke to this during the last budget session, and it still stands for me as we go into this next budget session. I am not willing to make cuts to public safety. I'm not willing to make cuts to anything that impacts permitting. I'm not interested in anything that impacts communication to residents. And we also make $0 investments in women and girls programming. In a $1.27 billion budget, that is insane to me. And when we talk about women and girls and uplifting women and girls, we are facing a situation in Glendale where just last year our police department received over 635 domestic violence calls. That is 635 too many calls. So we can either continue to send police officers to respond to these calls, or we can start investing in funding and in resources and programming to help our families be able to get out of these situations. This is not a women and girls issue. This is, if you talk about public safety as an example, this is a public safety issue that has generational impact. And so for me, it's really important that we look at how we're implementing policy and not just the headlines of policy. I speak about that a lot. But if I had to pick again, those 3 would still remain as the things I would not be willing to touch. And we've made a lot of investments in parks and arts and our green spaces and our libraries. Those are the things that people love about Glendale. And once you start making cuts to those, no one's talking about how wonderful those things are, but the minute you start making cuts to those, you're actually going to be impacting the quality of life of your residents. I've also been a very big champion of festivals and events in our city that bring our communities together, from our Vartavar and Zakaz art festivals to any of the big items, because I also say it's not just great for the soul and mental health. It brings community together, but it is also an indirect source of revenue for the city, because when you have people visiting your city for these family-friendly events, then they end up shopping at your stores, grabbing coffee at your coffee shops, eating at your restaurants. And so it's an all-around great thing. And looking at ways to expand on that is going to be really important in the next 4 years.
It doesn't sound like there is much space for cutting. It doesn't,
I don't believe in cuts. I believe in revenue generation. I believe in being creative in how we generate revenue. I've talked even about small things like having restaurants at parks like Brand Park, where you have thousands of people hiking, then they come down. I'm one of those. There, you can have like a small restaurant that's there. You see it, you see that kind of concept around the world, and why not us be one of them? So there is opportunities there.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of actually bringing those things to a vote and moving forward, and not just sitting on them.
Yeah. We're running out of time, but I have one more question.
Okay.
You've touched on this already. We're going to talk about mobility. Glendale's facing congestion and pedestrian safety concerns and pressures to modernize transportation with the rapid transit line that is going to come through Glendale. I want to ask you, what kind of approach can we take to improve our mobility for drivers, bicyclists, pedestrians, and considering all of the small businesses that are also involved in that equation?
Of course. So I'll say that public transportation is something that I've been pushing for the last 3.5 years, and especially the analysis of the routes that we have now, the times that we use. Staff is going through that process now, but whether it's the BRT, us looking at how we're engineering our streets in such a way that it allows for the flow of traffic is going to be really, really important. We also have a serious issue. While we're one of the safest cities in the nation, and that doesn't happen by accident, we're also one of the worst cities when it comes to pedestrian and traffic safety. And so how we engineer our streets moving forward is going to be really important, but also how we do education and small things like the signals and how you change the crosswalks where you have lights and so forth are all part of a larger plan for improving mobility in the city.
Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for
10
having
minutes
me.
goes by very fast.
It does.
I want to give you an opportunity to tell our viewers and listeners where they can find more information on the campaign and about you.
Of course. I'm very active on social media. You can visit Elen Asatryan on Instagram, on Facebook. Our interns actually created a TikTok. I'm not managing that, but they're having fun with it. Or you can visit electelen.com. I hope to earn your vote and your support again.
Thank you for stopping by today.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. I'm Silva Harapetian. We'll see you next time.